Today we're looking at an article from Eurogamer titled Beta Has Become a Twisted Word. Blizzard responds to Diablo 4 early access feedback. This is just an interview with Joe Shelley and Rod Ferguson where they're discussing the beta and giving their opinion of how they view what the feedback that people have given has been. Did you have a metric for success for this weekend? Something in particular that you were looking at? And if you did have one, did you meet it? Yeah, part of the number of players, beta, has been a twisted word that has become marketing beta, which means demo. And for us, this was true beta because we wanted to be able to test the load. And what does it mean if we get a lot of players in? And Friday was a little bumpy because of that. But the way that we looked at it and the issues that we find now are the issues that will be a lot smoother at launch. And so this weekend was to prepare for next weekend, and the next weekend prepares for launch. I think this is a good take for him to have and a good response, because truly, we shouldn't be coming into a beta expecting it to be, peaches and daisies. It's something that's meant to be put out so that you get a bit of the experience and it helps them allocate the resources and see the numbers for the servers required. So I think that this is a pretty good response on his part. How many people were playing? I don't have final numbers, but well over 1 million players were playing this weekend. That's a pretty sweet number. It's a lot of people, obviously, and if you were to tell me that there was 1 million people trying to log in on Friday, I totally would believe you, because those queues were pretty brutal. My friends and I, we got booted out probably like 5-6 times between two of us over the course of the 10 hours, 13 hours that we played. So following that up, are there any restrictions on numbers next weekend? No. They're not going to put any caps, and I mean, hopefully there's not going to be the queues. We'll have to see how that goes. Interviewer here is just discussing his issues with getting into the beta because of the queues, and I mean, that's totally understandable, man. We all had that problem. And Ferguson says that, yeah, of course, it's ideal to not have any queues. That's where we want to be. Basically, what we're having today in the beta is what we'd like to have for launch. You go in, there's no queue, you go. So again, just reiterating that they're setting things up through these betas to make sure they play test it, make sure the servers aren't under load, and things will be smooth and good for the actual launch in June, which is what we're really wanting to be taking out of this. Is there anything you're worried about in regard with the open beta coming up when presumably many more people will play? We've made a lot of forward progress. The reason we're doing these tests, part of it is we want people to get their hands on and see if it's a great experience or not. And fortunately, once we got into Saturday, the last 2 days have been phenomenal in terms of feedback positivity. But beyond getting in players' hands to try it themselves and to get balanced feedback and other feedback that Joe's received, it's really about making sure that we can run it at load. Yeah, I think that's, again, it's good info and a good response. It seems like, to sum this up, he's trying to just reiterate, hey guys, those were issues that we had. You should have expected them, but we fixed them, and we may foresee more of them in the future, but we're going to try and get ahead of that and continue working on our server stability. They're talking a little bit here about the experiences with co-op, which, yeah, it's pretty cool to have. I mean, if I had somebody living with me and I had a PlayStation or something that I had available, I probably would play some co-op. I think that could be cool. I just worry about that from some of the videos we've seen previously where the co-op video looked a little bit too Diablo 3-ish to my liking. It mainly had to do with all the UI and the colors underneath the players as they're running around. So yeah, I don't know. It's a mixed bag on that. I'm happy to play it on PC though. So here we see him asking about the Diablo subreddit to see the general reactions and see how it's a gathering place and how people are impassioned there. And I definitely see that. When I go in the forums, people are up and at 'em about this. They're talking about all the systems, the repetitive nature of the dungeon tile layouts, having the fetchy back and forth backtracking in the dungeons, repetitive bosses, UI, lack of skill tree, customization. Like, there's a lot of varied opinions negatively on there. It's kind of like a melting pot. I'm not sure how much Rod Ferguson and Joe Shelley really want to be going on there, but I suppose that they have to get some insight in what they could be doing better. So that's definitely good that they're checking that out. Here they're talking about the Butcher and how that was a surprise for people. And you know what? I never saw the Butcher, but seeing those videos, it really took me back to D2. And I'm quite happy they have little unique monsters like that coming in the game. It wasn't in the December build, but it is now in the betas, so that's pretty cool to see. I don't know how you guys feel about, treasure goblins and whatnot, but that's probably one thing from D3 I'm happy to see come back. It's definitely fun to chase them around, and especially when you get a nice piece of loot from them. And here they're talking about unexpected surprises. Rod Ferguson, yeah, because you never know what's going to show up. And the Butcher's a perfect tool for that, because the essence of what players love about the Butcher is the ambush and the sense of fear. So he's a perfect addition. We want to add more things like that in the future as well. Joe and I have been talking about, in order for D4 to succeed, it had to walk this line between nostalgia of what was the best essence from D1, D2, and D3, and then what's the new innovation for D4. If it's too nostalgic, it's the same old game. Why am I playing? And if it's too new, it's not a Diablo game. Where's the stuff I love? So I like these comments. I think it's pretty true. Like, adding a character like the Butcher back in is very nostalgic for players, and it just kind of brings you back in the moment. You see him and you're like, oh shit, better get running or better get killing. It looks like they're going to be in future adding more of those types of monsters to the game as well, which I think that's pretty cool. Another thing I've seen feedback on is around the relative power of the classes currently in the game, and I know they're not all there yet. The Druid and Necromancer are being added in the open beta this weekend. I've seen people say the game is easier as Sorcerer with range abilities than it is as a Barbarian who has to fight up close, and the Rogue is somewhere in between. And I've had to go at all the classes, and I tend to agree. Oh, and the feedback is coming from people who have somehow taken all 3 currently available classes to 25. I wonder if everything is working as intended, or if you're looking at it again with an eye to potential rebalancing. Joe Shelley. Whenever we make changes to the game, it affects the balance. So balance is a continual progression. And in particular, this beta, in addition to the technical aspects that Rod was talking about, is an opportunity for us to look at the balance in the world and make improvements. So certainly are things like Hammer of the Ancients is a little bit underpowered, and Frost Sorcerers are pretty strong. Arclash is a little weak right now. There's a few things like that. But in general, there are no classes that are only for the really skilled people. When you see that campfire lineup, it's not just mechanics that you're choosing, it's also class fantasy. So if you have, for example, a fantasy of being a rogue, we don't want you to pick up a rogue because you think that character looks really cool, and then for us to come back and say, oh no, that's only for people who have 60 hours of Diablo. Rod Ferguson, you're good enough. So, this is an interesting thing. They're trying to say that they want you to pick the class that you want to play because you like the fantasy, you like the way it looks, and you can imagine yourself in that role. However, when we play these games, a lot of people min-max, and they try to find what's meta, what's bis, and they try to hold on to that. And I mean, currently, it's I don't know how you could argue it, but if anybody's seen those videos, I mean, Asmongold had one where his wizard just absolutely decimates a boss in 5 seconds. Like, that build with the cooldown reduction on Icy Blades is just nutty. So I don't know, like it's gonna be hard if they look at it like that. They really are gonna have to do some sort of balance act to try and make things work better overall for classes that are struggling. I know not everybody's gonna struggle the same. Some people will have a better time with classes than others, but there is an overall sentiment and a lot of proof in videos that some classes are performing better than others. I mean, that kind of wraps it up. They just keep talking about different types of builds and how that is. So, I mean, overall, it looks like they're positive about how the beta went, and they're really aware of what went wrong, and they're trying to fix that for the next one. It doesn't look like we're getting any balance passes or anything like that, so Sorcerer's got to be OP still, but it's pretty cool to see them respond so fast like this, and I'm glad Eurogamer put this article up so that we could deep dive into this information.